Hello again and welcome to the Franchise Everything podcast, where we talk about everything and anything franchising. And today we're in Melbourne and we're chatting to a gentleman by the name of Marcus Gehling from Kwik Kopy in Dandenong. Marcus, how you doing?
Well, thanks, Glenn.
Excellent, mate. Thank you for coming and doing the long hike into the CBD here from Dandenong.
Not a problem.
How was it today?
Traffic can be a little bit hectic in Melbourne, so copped a little bit of that. But no, we're here and looking forward to it.
Ready for our chat. So we're going to talk about your journey in the business. That's what we're here to talk about today.
Sure.
We have a little bit of a debrief before all of these all the time, and it's really interesting that you are a person who has had one job prior to this in your whole life, or one career in your whole life, and then you've jumped into a Kwik Kopy franchise. So we really want to talk about that whole journey and how you got to it, why you got to it, how it's going, and all the things around that. So you have been in the business now. What is it? It's September 2023. You're in the business. When did you get into the business?
March 2022. So I think that's about 20 months or so.
Yeah. And what was it like at that time getting into the business? Because there was still you were on the tail end of a few things happening the previous years and a bit of drama in the marketplace with COVID and everything?
Probably back end of COVID, really. So, but it was an exciting time for me. As you said, one career to date, and so it was a new challenge. So I took that on and I suppose immersed myself in it, and I really enjoyed that change and that step. So yeah, whilst there's still a little bit of challenge, the things coming back to normal from those COVID years, it was still an exciting time for me.
Yeah, I imagine anyone. So you now you told me before you were 18 to 20 years in corporate banking.
Commercial banking, yeah.
Commercial banking, yeah. So what was all that like? What did you do in those roles in there?
Yeah, so straight out of university, I basically stepped into banking roles, business banking sort of roles, and asset finance initially. I did a number of those through a couple of organisations over the journey, and then in about 2013, 2014, found myself stepping into leadership roles, leading frontline sales banking teams. So, as you say, one career over all those years, and predominantly my time was spent at Macquarie and then NAB. So predominantly two organisations, although a couple little littered in there as well.
So what did you do at uni? What was the degree you did at uni?
Commerce degree at university. Okay.
And does that specialise you in a certain area of that, or is it just a fairly general degree?
It was fairly general, but I managed in finance. I majored in management and finance, so I suppose it's general, but then you tailor yourself a little bit to the things that appeal, which was finance and management.
Yeah. So what was the path for you then? So you're obviously in it for quite some time, so you're quite committed to that journey. What was your path in that you saw going forward? Did you see yourself always remaining in those sorts of roles, or what were you seeing throughout your career?
Initially, I suppose I did. I suppose I finished university and commerce being a broad business kind of degree, I never really knew exactly what I wanted to do. After I left uni, I actually still make the comment for a lot of years that people who don't know exactly what they want to do often end up in business banking. It's a very broad field as well, and very relationship based and that kind of thing. So I have often made that comment that that's the people that end up in business banking. But then from there, it is you do learn a lot. You do get to see a lot about different businesses, different industries. So it does actually give you a really good flavour and sense of what's out there in the world of business and commerce.
Yeah. So you did business banking. What was your take on small business at that time? Do you have a lot of direct involvement with small business and how they operate?
Yeah, the SME sector is, I suppose, the business banking sector. So certainly had a lot of involvement in it. I had a lot to do with a lot of professional services firms. That was sort of probably, where I specialised when I was at Macquarie, and sort of carried that through a lot of my career.
So what's that, accountants?
Accounting, financial planning, real estate, insurance broking, those kinds of firms. So that was really, really good to get a more focused lens on a particular sector or a few different sectors, and learned a lot about those and the way they operate.
So do you think, casting your mind back now to your business banking exposure, how's that impacted on how you run your business now? Are there any crossovers there or anything you took away from that?
Oh, there certainly is. And I think in all facets of life, you tend to, whether it's business, social, pleasure, whatever, there's probably little bits you take out of people you meet and things you see in your experiences. And I'd certainly say that business banking, there's a lot of that, you pick little bits and pieces out. But probably more so than that, I commented before that business banking is a very relationship-driven game. And in my time running this business, it's very much relationship too, whether that's relationships with your staff, your customers, your prospects, or even your suppliers and the franchise group. So I think probably the main thing I've taken from that is just the relationship side of things and being able to carry that through to what I do now.
Yeah, how about the learnings and stuff? Because you would have seen a lot of business plans, proposals, and all that sort of stuff. How did that correlate to you getting into your own small business when you're talking about business plans and things? Because I think I told you a story about a business banker who told me a story previously about their exposure to business plans when they wanted to start their own business. How did you find that?
Yes, I think your observation was pretty accurate. That you look at business plans for 18 odd years,
Casting judgment on them,
and casting judgment,
and
and being critical of them, and then the time comes down to sit down and write your own business plan, and all of a sudden it's a challenging step to take. So to go from the sort of the doing and the critiquing and the observing to actually putting your own into place, but certainly things like cash flow forecasting and understanding cash flow, those sorts of things, they're probably they're the strong skills that I took out of my old career that I've carried through to running my own business,
and particularly cash flow for small business, absolutely critical.
Definitely cash flow, yes.
Yeah, you would have seen that well and truly in your whole career.
And understanding the cash flow cycle and how that works and how that impacts your business. So.
Yeah. So you're obviously a franchise owner for Kwik Kopy now, so there was a real change happen along the way there.
Yeah.
So what was the catalyst for a change? So can you talk me through what occurred and how you ended up doing what you're doing now?
I'll try and give you the abbreviated version.
We've got plenty of time.
Right, yeah. So I'd probably got to a point in my career where maybe I was frustrated with my role. You often find yourself in banking, like leading a team. I didn't necessarily always agree with the messages coming down the line that I then had to deliver. So I suppose you feel a little bit disingenuous. And I think I'm a very genuine person in the way I treat and deal with and lead people. So,
you found that difficult?
I found that a little bit challenging, yeah. And I do remember specifically one day lying in bed. I was actually at my mum and dad's holiday house, having a little bit of sleep in. And I just thought to myself, if my role got impacted through a restructure soon, as it often did in the banks, I'd probably think about not reapplying for my role. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, I had my boss sat down with me, had the conversation, and said, "Guess what?" So I kind of knew.
How'd that chat go?
It was actually really,
how did you feel? How did you feel with
it? Well, it was really funny. So it was actually my end of year performance outcome conversation, and she sat down, and I had a great relationship with her, got on really well with her, and she sat down with me and said, "I've got some good news and I've got some bad news." I said, "Oh, okay, here we go." And the good news was my end of year outcome, which was great, and the bad news was that my role was being impacted. And I actually remember my response. I said, "Cool."
Cool.
So I knew pretty quickly that that was a key opportunity for me to to think about what else I wanted to do and maybe explore those possibilities.
It's funny in the way I think I'm looking back. I'm trying to look back at my career previous. I've got made redundant twice, and one was like, yes, all right, let's go, and the other one was, we just started building a house when I got made redundant in one role, like 25 years ago or something it was. But yeah, it is funny, and I think it's very much the way you look at the way you approach it, isn't it? So you approached it obviously with the positive mindset because you're already thinking about that. What time frame and what was your mindset around it?
Well, before I jump into that, you make a very valid point because I'd obviously been through restructures before, and probably when I went through 2 or 3 years before that, I had a very different attitude, probably much the same as your experience.
You're concerned, are you?
Very concerned, very nervous. Now, it turned out I didn't need to be. There was there was roles for me, but I approached that very, very differently. So this time around, probably because of the way I'd been feeling, and as I said, the thoughts I had, I was happy to roll the dice or whatever it be. But
were you in a financially different position at that time? Do you think? Or probably not much different.
Maybe it was a little bit different, but it was just my own mindset that was the main difference, I think, at that point. So yeah.
And when was that? So what time frame are we talking about when this redundancy conversation happened?
That was the end of 2019.
Okay, there was a bit to go happening then, wasn't there?
There was, yeah.
Okay, so how long did it take before you left the business? You left the banking business?
It was about 6 months later I left.
Okay, so you had a bit of warning. Okay.
So I kicked around and did some national project role for a while, and then COVID came along, and I found it like we were all redeployed to do different things because of the impact of COVID initially, and I probably found that a lack of direction a little bit challenging. So there had been another financial banking organisation that I'd loosely spoken to, and I ended up taking a role with them. Probably on the back of, or definitely on the back of COVID. So you got
redundant, had a project role, and then went to another bank
for 18 months. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you're still sort of snaking around a little bit.
I was, yeah. But
so was your mindset sort of foot in one camp, one in the other? Not quite sure.
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, as I said, it was a conservative response to COVID.
Yeah, of course.
No one knew what was going to happen in the world, so it was stick to what you know and do that. But probably after 12 months at the next bank, I kind of realised there was a reason that I'd I felt the way I did and made the decision I made. So it's time to think about what else I can find to do.
What were you thinking then? So you're at that other place and you're looking. So what was your next step?
So I mean, I was literally on. I think I had a couple of weeks leave at some point, and I just had the thought to myself, if I don't start looking, nothing's ever going to change. So
You're looking for a business.
Yeah.
How long had you been thinking about getting into business for yourself?
Oh, in the back of my mind, it'd always been something I'd wanted to do, was have my own business, have control, have something that you manage and can lead. And I suppose the success is yours, and the failures are completely yours as well. So it's always something I had in the back of my mind. And that's why I sat down, I started looking at business classifieds and thought, well, what's out there? Let's have a look around and see.
It sounds like maybe like from when you described it with frustration with things coming down to you at the bank and everything, it sounds like you're your own business owner in the making from years prior, potentially.
Possibly. I'd probably like to have destiny in my own hands to a degree. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you started looking. What was the criteria? What was the criteria? So did you resign first, or you started looking?
No, I was looking first. I had all this lined up before I resigned from my job.
It's probably a good move.
I'm still a conservative banker, so basically it was probably about location. I'd ideally love something within a reasonable proximity to home.
So this is your criteria?
Yep, it's my criteria definitely. I suppose turnover, then potential profit. And purchase price had to be something that financially I could take on.
So you were looking for existing businesses that were already operating?
Existing businesses, and something I didn't have to be a subject matter expert in, something I could step in and manage the business without having to know everything about the way it works on day one.
So were you particularly looking for a franchise, or were you considering anything pretty much at that stage?
To be honest, I probably initially wasn't considering a franchise. I was probably looking at standalone sorts of businesses.
Was there a reason for that, or was it?
I'd probably never just considered a franchise model for me. So it wasn't something I'd really given thought to until I found a couple of businesses that were franchise businesses, but sort of ticked all the other boxes.
So I'm interested in this sort of topic. So about what people's thought perceptions are about franchising before they actually get one.
Sure.
So what was your perceptions of franchising before then? When you think I'm not a franchise person, what were you thinking?
I suppose control. Directive.
That you would be under control.
Yeah. So I suppose I stepped out of what I was doing because I felt a little bit of lack of control around how I could do it. So I suppose initially my perception a little bit was under a franchise you're probably really bound by various parameters,
rules and guidelines and everything.
Yep.
Yeah. And have you found that to be the case?
No, not at all. No.
Okay. All right.
No.
that was a dangerous question, wasn't it? That was a very dangerous question. But no, that's good. So, all right. So that's the criteria, close to home.
Yep.
An established business is already on. There's some numbers there and the purchase price being there.
Yep.
What else was starting to factor into your mind as you started to see some business opportunities and you're weighing them? What ones were you weighing out and sort of starting to change your perception?
Yeah, so I suppose, long-term nature of the business. I think I mentioned earlier, maybe off camera, long-term staff and having a stable kind of staff base as well. They were probably the next sort of things that sort of stacked up. And then, once I got hold of the financials, was able to do some due diligence on those, just the robustness of what the customer base looked like and, what the recurring nature of those businesses looked like they were going to be.
So it was Kwik Kopy. How did you find a Kwik Kopy? Because you obviously, that's where you've ended up, obviously.
Yeah.
How did you come across that?
I don't know if this is the way that people normally, the journey normally follows this path, but literally looking on a business classified.
That's the normal path. I ask so many people how they come across. It's normally a broker or a classifieds website.
And the funny thing was, the broker I dealt with, later down the track, he said, "Can I ask how you found me?" And whatever particular classified website I found it on, he said, I was actually about to pull the ad off that because I've never had a hit on it. So it was a little bit of an obscure site, perhaps, I don't know. But
it's also an obscure thing to say.
It was, yeah.
Isn't it at the same time?
Yeah, it was, yeah. But I found it and as I said, did the due diligence, looked at the numbers, and I kind of got to the point I was fairly lucky that my wife's quite supportive and perhaps trusting, maybe too trusting.
Yep.
She sort of said, "Listen, if you think it's going to work and you think you can make it work, then she'd back me in to do it." So I kind of got to the point where it stacked up. I felt it made sense for me, and I felt that I could make it work. So it was either make the decision to jump into it, or then focus on what I was doing and make the decision not to.
So, how did you check off the things that you want to check off from your conservative business banking background, your due diligence and everything? Can you talk me through the process of assessing the business and how you looked at assessing the business to actually decide on purchasing it?
Yeah, so
I think this helps a lot of people, because a lot of people in franchising, that's why, sorry, I butt in there, is that there's a lot of angst at times in franchising from lawyers, accountants, franchisors, everyone involved, that people who are purchasing franchising aren't doing enough due diligence and checking enough, and they're taking at face value what gets said a lot. So I'm very interested in your take on that.
And I'll probably add another layer of complexity to it as well. I mean, I was looking at this, end of 2021, was sort of when I was doing this process. So still COVID impacted.
So a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, so a lot of unknowns, but I suppose the one thing that, I did rightly or wrongly, I looked at what it was doing pre-COVID, so year FY18, FY19, were the years that were unimpacted by COVID, and I suppose, I suppose I did what I would normally do when I was a banker. Run a servicing exercise, run a stress test on what the numbers are telling us. Do my own servicing in terms of the debt that I need to carry into it and those sorts of things, and then how much money I need to extract out of it to maintain the lifestyle that I want to maintain or need to maintain. I'm trying to think what else we went through. There was obviously a due diligence process on Kwik Kopy. That probably came later in the piece because, as I said, I was looking at the business first, probably before the franchise group.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's an established business. You're looking at numbers and everything, and you think, okay, and then the next layer becomes this franchise, because a lot of people are actually finding franchises by looking at brand first and then going to the brand.
Yeah, so I probably did it back to the front, the way a lot of people do it. I found the business first, got comfortable to a fair degree with that, and then tried to understand the Kwik Kopy group. And part of that was speaking with existing owners, speaking out in the market as well, just finding out what I could about the reputation.
How many did you speak to?
2 or 3 perhaps.
Yeah. And what were those conversations like?
They were probably fairly light sort of conversations.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but the first person I spoke with was probably a bit an older owner. So I probably was prepared to be cynical with me where they could be, and they were honest.
Yeah.
They probably told me the things that were good, but also told me the things that were bad or frustrated them. But they weren't anything that overly concerned me.
Yeah.
I don't think there's probably always a little bit of tension in some of these relationships, and that's healthy. But there was nothing there that I thought was unreasonable or that meant that there was going to impact or hinder the business.
And it is good because there's people are all in that life cycle of their businesses as well. Whether in and early, exiting, whatever, and that can affect their approach to it as well and their thoughts on it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I mean, the fact that the owner I bought off, he'd been in the business for about 20 years.
Yep.
The owner before that had been about 10 years, so it's about a 30-year established business.
Been there quite a while. Yeah.
And the staff were all keen to stay on. One of my staff members has been there at the time, I think about 18 or 19 years. Another one about 16 or 17 years.
That seems quite common in Kwik Kopy.
Yeah.
I think we've done podcasts with 3 other franchise owners over the time, and they talk about long-term team members really being a key part of the business.
Well, coming from banking, that's not something I'm used to either. People get to 18 months, 2 years, and they want a new job. So that gave me a lot of confidence that if those staff members who are long-term, would know how the business runs inside out, are keen to stay on, that would help my journey, my transition, and make it a lot easier for me.
Yeah, critical. And what were your interactions with Kwik Kopy like? So how did you find them when you started to go through to the brand side of it? What was that like?
I found that fairly easy, I suppose. I think, once Kwik Kopy got to know who I was and understand myself and my CV, they were quite keen to work with me and try and bring me on. Without being conceited about it, but I've got a reasonable background in the business space, so I found those interactions probably fairly easy, but it was a respectful, interactions.
And what were your first impressions of the brand? Put it this way, so you already knew a little bit about the store. I'm interested in your first take on it. Like, I'm always interested in the first contacts, who they chat to, how that went, what they're feeling. Because buying a business is a pretty challenging and scary thing. So I'm always interested in what those first contacts and what people feel like as a result of those.
You test my memory now. I can't remember what my first contacts were. Certainly my first impressions of the brand, it was reassuring. I was familiar with the brand. And I suppose at the same time, there wasn't a Kwik Kopy on every second corner store either,
Yeah.
corner either. So I think I suppose part of my initial thoughts were that the spread was probably fairly good. It meant you've got your own patch to work with without being, I think there's 2 Snap stores in Dandenong, for example, whereas the next Kwik Kopy store is a few suburbs over. So you've got space to work your own
plenty
patch.
of market there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And what do you enjoy most about what you do? What do you find most enjoyable?
I suppose again, probably being my own boss, and actually legitimately being my own boss.
Yeah.
I like working with my staff. I've got a really good team there, and the customer interactions. I love winning new customers. I love, learning more about our existing customers and doing more with them, giving them solutions to their problems. I've never considered myself much of a creative person, but I suppose all of a sudden
Are you becoming
I'm
creative
tapping
now?
into
Is the banker becoming
side
creative?
a little bit. I'm probably still a long way to go, but it's certainly part of
Do you enjoy having fun with that?
I do, yeah, it's great, yeah.
It's good.
Probably it's doing things I haven't, in that regard, doing things I haven't done before.
So what do you normally do on a daily basis? So what have you made your role in your business?
Yeah, so my role predominantly is the sales and relationship piece.
Yeah.
I have found myself, I'm the sort of person, I'm fairly hands-on, so I have found myself getting involved operationally, but there's a part of me that I like to know how to do things. And that's if it's Christmas time and we've got skeleton staff on and customer needs something done.
So you can jump in and get
I can jump in
done.
and help if we need to, or when we're busy. We've grown a fair bit, so there's been patches where we've been fairly busy. I can jump on and help and just try and relieve a little bit of the workload and hopefully stress from the staff. So I have been doing a little bit of operational stuff, but that's part of my learning journey. But predominantly,
it's good you inject yourself into that, though. I can imagine someone buying an established business with an established team could just sit back and let the team do their thing without learning anything.
Of course, yeah. That's it. It's just the way I operate. I like to touch and feel and know how stuff works. So, but I try and take care of all the sales and relationship stuff, and sort of be that person. The staff are really, really good at what they do. So part of my job is leaving them alone to support them and do their thing.
Yeah. So what's the journey? What's the growth been like? What's the business? How's the performance of the business been going since you took over?
I suppose it's hard to put I don't like putting an exact figure on it because the figures I had before taking over were COVID numbers. But I think if I took the last non-COVID affected year, period, we were sort of 25-ish% up. Sales, so that was a really pleasing.
How's that fit to your plan? Are you disappointed in yourself, or are you?
No, it was we were ahead of I suppose where I was expecting or hoping we would be. So all going ahead of plan at the moment.
Excellent. And the future, what do you see as the future? So what is the future for a Kwik Kopy business as you keep to grow it? Are you looking within your territory or looking through another location, or how does that work?
At the moment, I suppose I'm just trying to maximise what we've got, here. I think we've got, Dandenong is a great location, plenty of businesses, nice big industrial area. So whilst there's plenty of competitors in our space around there, there's also a platform for us to continue to grow. So we've gotten into wide format a bit more than what we were.
What, sorry?
Wide format.
What's that?
So that's your large vinyl sort of stickers, lettering, signage, and that kind of thing. So there's certainly there's more growth opportunity for us in that space, as well as actually just bringing on more other customers in the area. We're doing reasonably well picking up new customers as we go.
How are you grabbing those? How are you picking up new customers?
So some of them walk in. Yep. Some of them have been from existing networks. Some of them have been existing customers that were only doing a tiny bit with us. That I suppose just through me getting out, understanding who they were, they've now one of them's actually grown to be our biggest customer. So. A little bit of a multi-prong approach, but again, it's just actually about touch, about being in front of people. When you do get a new customer through the door, you go and you meet with them, and again, you understand who they are, what they need, and you try and plug them into how you can help and support them. And
that feels like, from all the chats I've had, that feels like pretty much the secret to success in a Kwik Kopy.
Yeah.
Just trying to help as much as you possibly can with the business, and more work just keeps coming from each time you service someone really well.
Yeah, I was watching Lindsay's interview, Susan Lindsay's interview, and she made a comment that really resonated with me too. Is that customers give you something and they just know it's going to be taken care of, and it sort of resonated because we're much the same. Customers give us something, and I just want them to know, don't stress. Give us your deadline, we'll deliver it, and it'll be exactly what you need. So I think that's certainly part of our value proposition.
And that's a perfect way to finish. Excellent.
Perfect.
Marcus Gehling, Dandenong, Kwik Kopy, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Glenn.
It was a pleasure talking to you and hearing your story, mate.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us again on the Franchise Everything podcast. If you like what we're doing here, if you want to see more of it and support what we're doing on the channel, please like, subscribe, review, do all this sort of stuff. Leave comments, chat, ask questions. We love to hear from you, and hopefully you do keep supporting us so we can keep doing more of exactly what we've been doing and keep doing more in the future. Talk to you soon.